Oftentimes, I find some of the most interesting locations in video game worlds to be the ones that are part of the everyday life of the characters that live in them. The laundry pool in Majora's Mask, the Stardrop Saloon in Stardew Valley, or the inns in World of Warcraft. Places where the lives of the world's inhabitants go on when the playable character is not around. The appeal of these locations are oftentimes more about your imagination and headcanon rather than the actual details or content provided by the game. This is very true for the Pokémarts in the Pokémon franchise. These locations don't have much going on in terms of gameplay, other than buying or selling items and the occasional interesting NPC. But they are such an integral part of the in-game universe, and a lot of implied details are packed into the design of the Pokémarts that help flesh out their feel and character. The designs of the Pokémarts have also changed a lot over time, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. Today, I wanted to take a look at the evolution of the Pokémart and what they add to the lore of Pokémon. The idea of a Pokémart where a playable character could purchase items to aid them in their Pokémon adventure was thought up from the very beginning, as can be seen in one of the earliest Ken Sugimori concept arts of a trainer visiting a market of sorts, with Pokémon in the background that can assumedly be purchased, as well as other various items. The overall design of the Pokémarts that we eventually saw in-game stayed relatively simple and consistent throughout the early generations of Pokémon, with Pokémon Red and Blue introducing a small but quaint interior with unidentifiable objects and items on shelves or in coolers that left most of the blanks to be filled in by the imagination. Most of these design details remained the same in later Pokémon titles, aside from slight changes and variations. In Generation 2, Pokémon Gold and Silver, individual exteriors were added to each Pokémart, with the color scheme and aesthetic in line with the town in which it was present. Though the details of the items present in the interior was relatively the same as Pokémon Red and Blue, the jump to color added a much-needed fresh coat of paint to the aesthetic of the Pokémart. Generations 3 and 4 reverted back to the uniform exterior design of the Pokémarts that would remain the same throughout the remainder of the Pokémon franchise. The interiors were also upgraded with a new color palette and upgraded textures, although still basic in nature. But it wasn't until Generation 5 in which the largest change to that point occurred in the design of the Pokémart. Starting in Pokémon Black and White, the individual Pokémarts were removed entirely from the cities of the region. Instead, a small alcove was added to each Pokémon Center, housing 2 Pokémart clerks and 2 shelves. This is where the Pokémon trainer would now buy or sell the traditional Pokémon items. This design concept change remains as the current design for Pokémarts in all new Pokémon games, aside from the remakes, of course, which maintained their traditional original design. The decision to combine the Pokémarts with the Pokémon Centers was one that was welcomed by some, as it simplified the process of buying and selling items, but it was also maligned by others who felt as though it removed some of the character present in early generation Pokémon towns and oversimplified the game. The oversimplified design of the Pokémarts are most present and noticeable in the Pokémon X and Y games, in which there are no noticeable items present. Instead, all items are virtually displayed on screens, as well as the most recent design in the Pokémon Scarlet and Violet games, in which the Pokémarts are combined as a small terminal with the Pokémon Center, in which a clerk stands at a relatively empty kiosk. Now that we have explored the evolution of the Pokémarts themselves, it's now time to dive into a deeper look at the interiors of some of the more detailed Pokémarts and determine what the shopping experience would be like for the inhabitants of the town and the trainers who stop by on their Pokémon adventure. The first mainline Pokémon game that presented us with a closer look at the detailed items available in a Pokémart was Pokémon Sun and Moon. Though these games did present the Pokémarts as a small inclusion in each Pokémon Center, relegating it to a small alcove in the corner, the detail in which the individual items were displayed on the shelves behind the clerks was the first of its nature. On the shelves, we see items such as potions and hyper potions, repels, Pokeballs, and even things that resemble rare candies and vitamins. These details were also present in the Pokémon Sword and Shield game. Previously mentioned items such as potions and repels can clearly be seen and accurately match their official artwork. New items present, like ethers, antidotes, and others, add a bit of overall depth to the experience of visiting a Pokémart. The more recent Pokémon remakes of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu both recreated their respective Pokémarts in which they were based on in a refreshing and highly detailed manner. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl added elaborate detail to the items present within the shelves of the Pokémart, as well as transparent doors on the coolers of the Pokémart, showing a quick glimpse at some of the cooled drinks that are available to the patrons of this store. Though some of these items are not able to be purchased in-game, displaying a more detailed look of the other items present in the store add a bit of lore and believability to the location in which you are exploring. I believe the best example of this, however, is with the Pokémon Red and Blue remakes Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu. Whatever your opinions on these games might be, the artwork and design choices are hard to argue with for any longtime Pokémon fan. The Pokémarts in these games offer an immaculately crafted look at what a realistic in-universe Pokémart might look like. Traditional items such as potions and repels are clearly visible. The coolers are filled to the brim with various chilled drinks such as sodas, lemonades, and fresh water. And for the first time visible in-game, Premier Balls can be seen alongside the traditional Pokeballs, not only in the glass display case on the counter, but also proudly displayed on the shelving on the wall. By taking a look at the Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu concept art of the Pokémart, we get a more detailed look at some of the more hard to identify items, such as TMs, once again, not purchasable by the player in-game, but it's a wonderful touch to include them in the design and visuals of the Pokémart. We also have a bookshelf, no doubt, with various training manuals, Pokémon encyclopedias, and no doubt a multitude of scientific texts. Add to that the multiple advertisement posters on the walls, snacks on the shelves, and the multitude of props placed on the counter, such as pens and brochures, creates an overall cozy and detailed experience when visiting the Pokémarts in Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee. This design is much more in line with other versions of Pokémarts that we have seen in the Pokémon anime, which display many items that are not traditionally thought of to be purchasable at Pokémarts or usable by your average Pokémon trainer, but are more realistic to convenience stores and department stores that we are used to in our everyday lives. The atmosphere and feel of the Pokémarts in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee are unfortunately absent in most other Pokémarts in-game, and specifically the Pokémarts in modern Pokémon games. Of course, these design choices are very subjective, and you may very much enjoy the simplified and empty look of the Pokémon Scarlet and Violet Pokémarts, or the more traditionally simplistic designs of the Pokémon Red and Blue franchise. Whether you fall on either end of that spectrum or anywhere in the middle, the choice of what you enjoy is up to you, but the stark contrast in the differences of these design choices are hard to ignore. I hope you enjoyed this deeper look into one of the more basic aspects of the Pokémon universe, and if so, perhaps you might enjoy some of my other recent videos. As always, I thank you for giving me your time, and please take care.